welcome to the Boat Buyer's Secret Weapon podcast. I am your host, Captain Matt, and want to welcome you aboard the podcast here. We're dedicated to helping first-time and experienced boat buyers find the right boat at the best price so they have years and years of boating fun, because really, life truly is better on a boat. Today's episode, how to buy a used boat from a boat dealer or a private seller. As we're going to talk through today, it's not really going to matter who you're buying the boat from. This is the process to go through, and we're going to get into each of the steps. Now, there may be a few differences if you're working with the dealer, if you're buying directly from a private seller, or if you're using a yacht broker or a boat broker. The process is going to be similar, and I'll try to point out some of the differences as you get into each of those situations. So you've decided to go with a used boat, or pre-owned as they call it at the dealerships. So when you're looking at a pre-owned boat, whether it's a year old or whether it's 20 years old, there's several things that you need to do to make sure you don't get somebody else's problem. So what I mean by that is when you're looking at boats, there is something that can go wrong early in a boat's life, and there's some boats that can run for 30 years and not have a single major issue. It all depends on how the boat's taken care of, how well it's taken care of, and there are certain things that we're going to look out for that are just going to be deal killers. And no matter how much of a great deal you think it is, no matter how much you love the boat, I'm going to encourage you to walk away, because the one thing is always true when you're looking at a boat. There's always another one that's going to be a great fit, okay? So let's start with, like we do with any boat, is you first have to think about how you're going to use it in selecting the right style. So is it a fiberglass boat with a stern drive? Is it an outboard? Is it a pontoon or a tri-toon or a center console, dual console, cabin boat, jet boat, wake boat, towboat, surf boat, whatever is the right style for you. That's number one. You always have to figure out how you're going to use the boat and go to that 80-20 rule that we've talked about in the previous episodes. You can go back and listen to that. That's the first-time boat advice for first-time boat buyers is you can go back and you can start there. So assuming that you've got the right style of boat, next we've got to make sure that we're in the right budget area. So if you're paying cash, what's the maximum amount you're willing to put towards the purchase of the boat? If you're financing a portion, know that on a pre-owned boat, you have to put at least 10% down, maybe 20%, depending on the size, the sales price, depending on the age of the boat. If you go with a marine lender, if you use a local credit union, who on pre-owned boats, used boats, I would encourage you to look at financing from your local credit union and a local banks. They may not go as long of a term, but they may finance 100% of it. They may say, you know what, with excellent credit, we don't care if there's any down payment because they're doing more of a relationship loan. But you want to make sure that you know for this particular boat what your financing is going to look like. So you can go to the boatbuyerssecretweapon.com/boat loan, and you can get a pre-qualification and get approved there. See what a marine lender would look like. They will typically go a longer term, but they're going to require down payment. If you want to see if you can find a no money down loan, you're going to need to typically go to your credit union, a local credit union that you have a relationship or can start a relationship with. Typically, the local Bank of America or Wells Fargo type of company, they are not going to do real well on used boat loans. But if you've got your checking account with them, go ahead and check into it. See what they look like. So you look at marine lenders, you look at local credit unions, and you look at your local bank if you have a relationship with them, and figure out what that boat budget is and what dollar amount would get you to the payment that you're comfortable with. So if you're, let's say you want to be at $500 a month, Well, that's going to put you, let's say, around $50,000 on a sales price. And you figure that out, and it allows you to shop in the price range that you're gonna be most comfortable in and have a long-term enjoyable boating lifestyle. So you get that boat budget set. You've got your financing set. If you're going to finance a portion, you've got your down payment tucked away. You know where that money's coming from. Now you start shopping. You can go on Boat Trader, Craigslist, dealership websites. Just Google, used pontoons boat for sale in your area. And you can walk into local dealers. A little inside tip is boat dealers are typically small family-owned companies. They're not going to be always right up to date on the inventory. So sometimes, especially if you're looking for a very popular, like a $20,000 used pontoon or a $30,000 used deck boat or tri-toon, I'll tell you, sometimes they can be hard to come by. And what you may want to do is walk into the dealerships in your local area and say, listen, this is the type of boat I'm looking for. This is the price range. If you have one that's not up on your website or not listed, give me a call. Maybe they know somebody that is looking to sell, or maybe they know somebody that wants to trade, but they just can't make the numbers work. But if they had a buyer, they might be able to do it. Could put you in a position to get a good deal on a clean boat that nobody else knows about. That's a great opportunity. Same thing with local brokers. If you have a relationship with a broker, or there's some good brokers in your area that typically deal in the type of boats that you're looking at, just call them up and let them know, hey, this is what I'm looking for. This is my budget. Here are my definite have-to-haves. Here are the things I would like to have. Here are the things I absolutely will not accept that are just, don't even call me with it. But get people looking for them. They will make a commission when they sell a boat. So if they're good, they will be on the lookout for you. And you also may find a boat that others aren't able to know about, others aren't finding because they're not listed online anywhere. So take that little extra step and you can find some gems. And then, Craigslist, all over the internet. Here's something I'm gonna throw out as a caution for you. A lot of people, my brother did this, will find a boat that is half a country away. My family lives in the Midwest, and he found a boat on the East Coast. And so him and my cousin packed up their 26-foot crown line they had, and they drove about 1,200 miles across country, towing a boat, took it to the dealer, showed it to them. They did the trade numbers, packed up the boat that they were buying, did the demo, did the sea trial, everything looked great, did all the paperwork, hooked up to their new boat, and towed it another 1,200 miles back home. Now, I'll tell you that they may have gotten a great deal on it, but they spent, 2.5 days of travel because they split the travel and they drove straight through. But they also spent about $1,000 in fuel to get from one place to the other, towing a 26-foot boat halfway across the country. So I want you to consider that there's expense associated with it. It could be a fun journey. It may not be something that turns you off, but just remember to calculate that into the purchase price of the boat, and you may be able to find a boat closer to home that is about the same price when you figure in that fuel, the expense, and the cost of your time, frankly, and spending several days traveling. So now you've got the feelers out for the type of boats that you're looking for in the price range that you're looking. And then you start narrowing it down and just go and actually jump on these boats. Go and look at them. Take an afternoon and go to the dealer and look at 4 or 5 boats that you find that fit. If you find boats on Craigslist or Boat Trader or iBoats or boats.com, whatever it may be. Go ahead and go and inspect them in person. Get a sense for, okay, a 26-foot boat in this age range for this price range in these manufacturers are about this much. And it'll give you a sense for, okay, how much should I pay? What does a $30,000 boat look like? What does a $70,000 boat look like? And what you'll find, unfortunately, is that the pictures don't always match up. So the pictures of the boat that you see online are not exactly what you will find when you board the boat in person. Don't let that discourage you, but do ask more questions before you go. Especially if you're going to be making a long journey to inspect the boat or to look at the boat. Don't get caught in the situation where you drive halfway across the country only to show up and have the boat not be what you are expecting, not in the condition that you were hoping for. So ask questions up front. Make sure that you're looking at current pictures. Ask the question, is there anything wrong with the boat that you're aware of that we haven't discussed yet? That's a good question that if you're dealing with an honest person, they'll answer that up front. And if you ask that question and you get there and the upholstery shot, if you get there and the boat sank and there's a water line in the engine compartment, the drive's all corroded and they didn't disclose that, well, you may want to ask yourself, what else are they not disclosing? So I really want you to use some good questions as you're talking to the sellers, a dealer, a broker, a private seller. It's all the same. You ask that question, is there anything else about the boat that I need to know? Any tears in the upholstery, any issues with the fiberglass or the exterior, any scratches, any dings, any corrosion, anything not working the way it should be that I need to be aware of. And then you've got a good idea before you drive somewhere, especially if it's local, not as big a deal. But I hear horror story after horror story talking to boat shoppers when they say the pictures were not as advertised. The boat was not as advertised. They say it's the cleanest boat you've ever seen, and you get there and the bottom's got a big scum line on it, and there's corrosion all over the drives, and there's fluid leaking in the engine compartment, whatever it is. Just ask those questions, get current up-to-date pictures, and with video now, somebody should be able to take a video of the boat and just give you a nice 3, 5, 7, 10-minute tour of the boat, so you know exactly what you're looking at. They can put it up on YouTube or Craigslist or text it to you or email it to you, and you've got a pretty good look at it. Okay, so once you are at that point and you've really got things zeroed in, and maybe you have the specific boat picked out, for donations to the site, I give you a great negotiation technique that has a couple of simple questions that you can use to ensure that you get the absolute best price. On this podcast, you can go to boatbuyerssecretweapon.com and you can click on that section and make a donation and get that free that training as a gift for your donation to the podcast. But at this point, you've got the boat picked out. You want to double check your financing. Sometimes you will find that you're all set for a loan, and on the specific boat, they may have some different criteria, because they do look at the boat value based on the book value. They do look at the actual year, the actual hours, and there may be some changes in financing. Hopefully not, but you want to know that before you get too far down the line. If you can get the hull identification number, HIN, the HIN, or hull identification number, you can give that to your lender, and they can put the exact numbers together based on what you think the purchase price will be, and they can be pretty exact, because that hull identification number will tell them exactly what they need to know. You can also, at this point, get an insurance quote. talk to an insurance company and find out exactly on that particular boat what your insurance would look like. You can do both of those on the boatbuyerssecretweapon.com website, and I encourage you to do that. We do get a small referral fee, whether you use them or not. But those referral fees help keep this podcast and this education going in an unbiased manner. But as I said with the financing, check with your local people, check with your local insurance company, and you can listen to the financing and the insurance podcast as well if you want to get more specific on those and get some additional inside information to make sure that you've got, especially on the insurance, good coverage, because the Allstates and the State Farms don't have the same type of coverage that a marine insurance company will have. And I really encourage you to look at that option. So now we're at the boat. You've got your financing is together. You've got your insurance quote. You know what that's going to look like. You are in your price range for the budget. Everything looks good. Now you're going to go check the boat out in person. So first thing you're going to do is do a visual inspection of everything external. So you're going to be on the ground and you're going to walk around the outside of the boat. You're going to look under the boat. If it's on a trailer and you're going to buy the trailer, you're going to look at the trailer and you're looking for rust. You're looking for corrosion. You're looking for anything that's broken. You're looking for things that don't move properly. You're asking questions about the brakes if it has brakes. You're asking questions about the lights if it has lights, and most boats it should. You're checking out the tires and you're looking for dry rot and cracks, things that will cost you $100 a tire. If it's got if it's a dual or a triple axle trailer, I mean you could be looking at $400, $500, $600 easy to replace the wheels on the trailer. You also want to check the lights. If it's hooked up to a truck, just do a quick check and make sure that all the lights are operational. The winch stand, make sure that's in good, solid condition. Check the axle for rust. I've heard stories of axles breaking when people drive away, especially if it's an older boat. It's even more important because a trailer, let's say a 5,000-pound dual axle trailer that would fit about a 22-foot boat, is about a $4,000 to $5,000 purchase new, and it's very difficult to find good ones on the pre-owned side. So even if you got it used, you're still looking at $2,000 or $3,000 on a used one that's in good condition. And it is a trailer is not something that you can just buy a trailer used and it's going to fit. Trailers have to be adjusted, and sometimes they're total custom trailers, especially on surf boats, inboard boats. It can be difficult. So pay attention to it, because that can catch you off guard. If you need to buy a trailer, if the boat doesn't have a trailer, again, figure that into your budget, because it will be a several $1,000 investment. If you're looking at a heavier trailer, it's not unheard of to spend $6,000, $7,000, $8,000, $10,000, $12,000 on a trailer for some of the bigger boats. And if you're not sure, there's a boat that doesn't have a trailer that you're considering, go ahead and call a dealer that sells that style of boat or that brand of boat specifically and say, listen, I'm looking at a 2007 model of this. What would a trailer run for that? And if they're a good dealer, they should be able to get that information for you pretty quickly. They may have to call you back. They may have to do a little research, but they'll give you an idea of how much that will be. Now, you're looking at the underneath of the boat. If it's a fiberglass boat, you're looking for blisters. Blisters are little bumps. They're cosmetic. They're not a major structural issue by any means, but you want to know about it. If it has blisters, maybe you can get a little bit extra discount. You're also looking for gouges and dings and scratches. If it's through the shiny part of the boat, that the gel coat, it's like a scratch on a car. It's not a big deal. If you see something that gets down to what looks into the fiberglass, the fiberglass on the bottom of the boat is several inches thick, but it's something you want to be aware of. And there could be a major crack. There could be major damage. You want to know about that. So look under the boat. The next place you want to look is on the stern of the boat. So the back portion of the boat. You want to go, if it's a stern drive, you want to go back there and you want to grab that stern drive and shake it a little bit. You're looking for a lot of give. If it's wobbling and wiggling, there's an issue. You want that to be nice and solid. You don't want to feel any give or sway in the transom. That would be indicative of some rot. You don't want the drive to kind of wiggle back and forth. A little bit is okay, but wiggle back and forth too much on that lower unit, that's going to tell you that maybe there's some issues with the lower unit or that stern drive. But go back there and double check it. Look for corrosion. Look for any cracks. Look for any rust. That's going to be the type of thing that you're looking for back there. Now, once you've done a good exterior inspection, and just make notes of it. If there are little things, ask about it. That are, like the blisters or like a scratch or a ding, and every used boat is going to have something. You are not, even if it's just 6 months old, it probably has some sort of flaw to it. That's why you're saving the money and buying used, right? So you're okay with that. Otherwise, you need to go new. And there's a podcast called New versus Used where I go into the positives and negatives of each. But just make a note of that, and that can be valuable in the negotiation. Hey, you've got this boat listed for $75,000. It's got there's a couple of blisters down there I saw. There's that little ding on the starboard side, on that right side. What kind of discount can you give me for that? You're priced at a perfect condition boat, and there's obviously some issues, and maybe you can get a little bit better deal on it. Just by making the note and doing a complete inspection. It also, maybe they weren't even aware of it. And as you bring up flaws of the boat in the seller's mind, whether it's a dealer, a private seller, or a broker, the value in their mind decreases as well and allows you to get a little bit better price. So now you want to hop in the boat. So it's time to jump in the boat, and you want to go ahead and open every locker, every compartment, check the hinges, check the hardware. If it's got a little locking clamp, check that. You want to smell for mold and mildew and must. Is there any kind of issues below the surface that you can't see but you can kind of smell? You should bring a flashlight with you, a good flashlight that you can look in those compartments, look in those cracks and crevices, and you're looking for rot. You're looking for a lot of mold, issues that may not initially be obvious, but in a year or so could cause major expenses. So you're looking around, and even if you're not trained, even if you're a first-time buyer buying a used boat, you will see things that just don't look right. And if you can if you see some wood that may have some rot in it, kind of poke it. Just feel around in there and get a sense for it. Like I said, if anything scares you away, then walk away, and there's always another boat, okay? There's no such thing as a boat that you absolutely positively must buy. Don't hesitate to walk away and keep looking. All right? So now you've looked in every crevice and crack and compartment of the boat. Now you want to go ahead and look under the helm. You want to check out the wiring. You're specifically looking for corrosion. You're looking for wires that look off, that are cut maybe and just dangling. Anything that shows that maybe this guy or lady did some work on their boat themselves, and maybe there's some things that aren't operational. Not 100%. That if there's a loose wire dangling, sometimes they come from the factory that way for an accessory or an option that the boat doesn't have. But ask the question. Hey, I see some wires back here that have a little corrosion. Anything not working on the helm? Any gauges or equipment not working? and see what their answer is. Make a note of it. Next, you want to go ahead and go to the engine compartment. The engine compartment on a stern drive, an inboard, a diesel, you want to get in there and you want to look everywhere. One of the things you're looking for is a water line. Is there a water line that would be indicative of the boat having sank? If the boat sank, for me personally, I would walk away. Now, there are people that have bought boats that have sank a small amount and have never had any issue at all. But for me, I wouldn't take the chance. There's another boat out there. I would walk away from a boat that sank and say, you know what? I'm gonna keep looking. I don't care how good a deal it is, because if there is corrosion, if there was some water that got in the engine, that could cause or has caused major issues that may already be known or may pop up down the line that you want to stay away from. The other thing you want to check out is the battery packs. Do the batteries look good? Ask when the batteries have been changed. Look for corrosion. You'll notice that is a common theme. Look, corrosion, it's going to happen on a boat, especially in the saltwater environment. But by looking for the corrosion, you can tell. And by looking at multiple boats, you can see, oh, that's a normal amount of corrosion. Of course, the battery's going to have a little bit. But you're looking for excessive corrosion and rust that are going to cause issues down the line. Then you're going to want to check the fluids. If it's a stern drive, you're going to want to check the gear lube. You're definitely going to want to check the engine oil. And you're looking, just does it look like it's been maintained properly? When's the last time that they did the service on the boat? So you want to specifically ask about when was the last time the oil was changed? When was the last time the gear lube was changed? And when was the last time the impeller was changed? If it's a stern drive or an outboard, when was the last time the impeller was changed? It's a $150 service that, if you don't get it done on time, can turn into a $10,000 repair if that breaks apart and then little pieces end up in the engine or overheats and causes problem in the engine. So you want to find that out. Hey, if you've got to do a $300 annual service per engine, know that that's going to be an expense. If they've just done it, great. Get the records, find out who did it, and you can save that money. But not knowing and not doing that service can turn into a big issue. Even on a boat that's in perfect condition right now, it can lead to issues down the line. So next, we're going to look if there's a storage locker. You want to look in there, and you want to look for the lowest areas in the boat, and you want to look for the bilge pump. You want to make sure the bilge pump is totally operational. Turn the switch on, and you want to hear the little whir of the pump going. If you don't have a bilge pump, and now this will be on a fiberglass boat, a deck boat, a bow rider, a cruiser, an inboard, a wake surf, you likely won't have one on a pontoon unless you have a tri-toon with a ski locker in the center tune. Then you'll have one in there. But pontoons, don't be looking for one. And some center consoles, if it's a self-bailing boat, you may not have one there as well. Kind of depends on the setup, but it's likely, especially on smaller ones, that you won't have a pump. Anything with a cabin, anything bigger may have multiple pumps in it that you want to check all of them and ask the owner. They should know, because if they're not operational and you get in a situation where you're taking on water, you can be in some serious safety issues in addition to some expenses. So you want to always check that. Now you want to go to the Helm station. You want to turn the batteries on. Oh, I didn't mention batteries other than corrosion. Batteries are, $170 to $200 each. And some boats will have 2, 3, 4 batteries depending on the size and what's all on the boat. So you want to find out when was the last time you replaced the batteries, what's the condition of them. And batteries will last 2 to 3 years typically, sometimes up to 5, depending on how well they're maintained and how often they're used. But if it's 3 years, assume, for me, if I was buying the boat, I would plan on replacing the batteries so I just knew that we were starting off, and our first couple of trips out, we weren't going to get stranded with the dead battery. And again, that can add up just like the trailer tires. It's a little thing, but it can add up one boat versus another. It may seem like this boat's cheaper, but in the long run, after the first year, if there's some repairs that you didn't expect, you can save yourself some headache and some money. So now let's move to the helm. Let's move to the captain's chair. Get the batteries on, and now start flipping through what's working, what's not. There'll be some things that won't be operational until you're in the water, but you can check the stereo. You can check the VHF radio. You can check the electronics in some cases. The fish finder, depth finders won't work on land typically. You can check the lighting. You can check the navigation light. Is there an anchor light? Something that a lot of times is if they don't boat at night, maybe they've lost it, or maybe it's broken. They don't even know. On some older boats, listen, there can be difficulty getting parts on some boats that are older than 10 or 15 years old. So you just want to be aware if there's something that's missing, something that's not working properly. What you want to do is you want to make sure that, okay, how much is that part to replace it, and can I get it? And then you're going to be in good shape, and you'll know as you're making the decision. Ask for the service records. If they have the service records, great. See, how often did they change the fluids? How often did they change the gear lube if it's a stern drive? How often did they change out the impeller? All of those things will give you a sense of how well was the boat taken care of, and are there some neglect issues that will likely come up, even if you can't see them. But they've never changed the boat's oil and fluids, and it's 5 years old. Well, that could be an issue for us. The next thing you want to look at is how many hours are on the boat. How much have the engines been used? There is too much usage, which can be an issue, and there's too little usage, which can be a bigger issue. So if I find a boat that's just a couple years, let's say 5 or 7 years old, and it's got 10 hours on it, well, my gut reaction is, well, engines need to be run. There could be some seals that have started to dry up. There could be some issues. The gas is certainly bad, and we may have to burn through some bad gas, which can be time consuming and could in itself cause some issues. So I don't want necessarily for the boat to have too low of hours. I want the boat to have been run on a consistent basis, but I don't want the boat to have been a rental where it has 500 hours on it and it's a year old. Well, that's a lot of usage. Although most stern drives and outboards, are going to have a good long useful life, 1,000, 1,500 hours, maybe a little bit longer, depending on how it's been maintained. But that's going to be a number that you want to know. Sometimes there's a gauge which will tell you. Some boats it just keeps it on a computer, and others you just won't know. On some older models, is you won't know what that number is, and that leads us to one thing that I highly encourage you to invest some money before you make the decision to buy, and that is to have the compression pulled on the engine. Have them hook it up to the computer on most of the newer engines. If you take it to a dealer that services that type of engine, they can pull up the history of how the boat was run, the RPMs that it's been run in certain ranges. So how much idling was done, how much was run in the mid-range, how much was run at the top range, how many hours at each range. It can tell you all of that on some of the newer ones. And then most importantly, pull the compression on the engine, especially on older boats, but really any boat. And what that does is it will tell you, hey, this is how strong the engine is firing compared to what it was when it was first built. So there's a range that a good running engine should be 120 pounds of compression, and they pull the compression and you're at 120. Perfect. All the cylinders are looking good, and the engine is solid. They can do that. Most dealers will be able to do that. Depending on how busy they are, it's a pretty quick service. If you know a mechanic, most mechanics are going to be able to pull compression on the engine, and it's going to be maybe 100, 150 bucks, 200 bucks if you're in a more expensive area, but well worth it. If you're spending even 10 grand on a boat, I'd spend 200 bucks to make sure I didn't buy an issue that's going to cost me 6, 7, 8 grand to replace that engine. And the engines do get that expensive, even rebuilt ones. So that gives you an idea of what to look for. Now, I want to give you some things to stay away from. One thing that you may not know is the boating industry is very segmented. There can be difficulty, I alluded to it, but there can be difficulty getting parts for different types of boats and different types of engines. This is one of the few times where I'm going to give some very, very specifics. But especially if you find an older boat that has an OMC Cobra drive on it, that's something I'm going to encourage you to be extra, extra careful about. Their OMC has been out of business for 20 years or more, depending on when you're listening to this. And parts can be nearly impossible to come by for the drives themselves. And so I would highly encourage you to be cautious of anything that has a white drive that's OMC or Cobra. Another is the Force engine. The Force engine was a private or a labeled as Force, but it was actually another engine. But those engines are notorious for having issues and are very difficult to get parts for, very difficult to get serviced. Here's what I would encourage you to do. The other thing is each area of the country, the different places where you boat, will have different levels of expertise in different types of engines. So if you're looking at an older boat and you yourself are not mechanically inclined and you're not going to do your own wrench turning, I'm going to encourage you to go to find a dealer that services that brand of that manufacturer of engine and ask them, hey, I'm looking at a 1982 OMC Cobra. Is that something that you can service? How easy or difficult are parts to come by? Even looking at a Mercruiser or a Volvo or a Suzuki or a Yamaha or a Mercury or a Tohatsu or a Evinrude, whatever it may be, you want to make sure that there's a manufacturer, a servicing dealer in your area that can get parts, because again, the industry is very fragmented. So if the dealers in your area all support Mercury, Mercruiser, and Yamaha, and they don't support Volvo or they don't support Suzuki, they don't support Evinrude, one, they may not have the computer technology to do the diagnostic, and two, they may not have easy access to the parts. It's not like a Ford or a Chevy where if you don't have the part, you call the dealer across the street, you call the Napa shop, and you have that part delivered in 24 hours. In the boating world, it doesn't work like that, and it can take weeks and weeks and months to get the right part, even for a boat that you would say, it's only 10 years old. Of course these parts are available. Not necessarily. So ask the dealer that you're going to have do the service, or the technician that's going to do the service. And there are some great ones out there. There are some great ones out there that have some resources, and there's some reseller sites that if they know what they're doing and they know what they're looking for, you can be in good shape. But if they're like most and they don't do that on a consistent basis, you can get yourself in a situation where a minor issue is going to keep you off the water for half the summer, and it's going to cost a fortune to get repaired. So that just a quick heads up. It's typically going to be on the engine and the drives where you have the issues. There's some other ones. There's some other like year models where there's issues. But again, if you're looking at a boat and you're not with the dealer, don't talk to the salesperson. Talk to the technician. Go to the service shop. Go to the person that would be working on the boat. give them $20 or buy them a case of beer or bring a pizza or some donuts with you and say, hey, do you mind if I ask you some questions real quick? And you will get more value out of that and a good relationship that's going to come in handy for a long, long time ahead of you. And that's just a little inside tip that, man, it's caused a lot of people to be frustrated beyond belief. And it's something that it doesn't have to be that way. If you do that little bit of extra work ahead of time, and the older the boat is, the more I would encourage you to do it. The 10 years old or older for a boat, you start seeing some of those issues. And so you just want to be aware of it and you want to be cautious. Now, with that said, I'm a big proponent for a lot of people, especially first-time buyers, to buy a used boat. I think, one, you're going to scratch it if you're learning how to operate it. If you're learning how to operate that new style, you're going to ding it up, and you feel less guilty. You feel less bad when you do it on a boat that already has a few imperfections. You're not going to love it. You're not going to try to do it, but it's just easier to learn on it. The second is, you know what? It's going to have better resale value if you do make a bet. If you decide, ooh, boating's not for us, we don't enjoy this, or we wish we would have gotten another style. If you do have to turn around and flip it and trade it in or sell it next year, you're going to come out much better financially. If you find out that you love boating and you're like, this is the exact boat, it's real easy to take that and trade up or buy a newer, bigger boat in the same category with that first one as a pre-owned boat, because after the first 5 years, the depreciation levels out a good bit on a boat, and the most boats have a lifespan of 20, 30, 40 years. If it's a manufacturer that stays in business, the engine manufacturer sticks around, and the boat's well maintained. That's a real key for a boat, is that it's well maintained for that engine to have that good of life. So that is the podcast for this week. If you're looking at a pre-owned, this is one that maybe you want to go back and listen to it again. But there are a lot of great little nuggets in there. A lot of things that will keep you from making a mistake. Again, when you get to the negotiation part, we would love it to have you make a donation for this free content, this insider information that we're delivering. And we're not just asking for the donation. We're saying, hey, I'm going to give you a super powerful negotiation technique that's going to help you save hundreds, likely thousands, maybe even tens of thousands of dollars when you start negotiating on the price of your boat, especially on a used boat. These techniques work extremely well, and I encourage you to go to boatbuyerssecretweapon.com, and you can take care of that there. Just choose the amount that works for you based on the value that you've gotten from the resources here, and knowing that you're going to get that special gift from us for making the donation that is going to help you save a lot more money than the donation. I can promise you that. And again, if you want to get a quote for a boat loan, quote for insurance, we also have a link for boating gear. All of those, send us a small referral fee if you end up going through the process, or if you end up buying some boat gear. We'd really appreciate that. The prices are great. We vetted all the companies that we offer that. We offer their services, and so you're going to get a great experience. If you don't have a great experience for any of them, let us know if we need to look at changing some of our relationships. So let's get this podcast wrapped up, back tied up on the docks, and we'll be back with you next week with another informative and probably money-saving podcast. So again, boatbuyerssecretweapon.com. You can go there, and until next time, remember, life's better on a boat. Take care, everybody.